Stop wasting hundreds of hours preparing for consulting interviews the wrong way. I'm a former Bain manager and interviewer, and in this video, I'll show you what 90% of candidates do wrong and how to avoid this. You're a busy student or working professional. Between juggling school or a full-time job, you don't have much free time. Perhaps you don't know anyone in consulting. Unsure of how to prepare for case interviews, you read a case interview book such as Case in Point or Case Interview Secrets. Afterwards, you find a classmate, colleague, or a stranger online to practice 100 cases with using cases in these books or free cases you find online. Does this sound like you? There are 3 huge mistakes in this scenario that cause people to waste hundreds of hours of case prep time and also end up failing their case interviews. In this video, I'll teach you exactly how to avoid these 3 major mistakes, and if you watch until the end, you'll save yourself many wasted hours of case prep. Mistake number 1. The first mistake is learning the wrong case interview strategies. Imagine if you learned case interview strategies that simply didn't work in real case interviews. Now imagine yourself doing 100 practice cases to refine or hone your skills in using these poor strategies. The result? 100 wasted practice cases. Simply put, if the case interview strategies that you are using are generic, overly complex, or not sophisticated enough, there is no point in practicing them. It is critical to learn the right case interview strategies the first time. This way, you can start building good case interview habits and start practicing the actual strategies you'll use in your real case interviews. If you learn the wrong case interview strategies, you'll not only waste hundreds of hours practicing the wrong strategies, but you'll also develop bad case interview habits that will be more difficult to fix the longer you have been practicing them. Although Case in Point and Case Interview Secrets are 2 of the most popular case interview books, I can assure you that most candidates that read these books and use the exact strategies taught in them do not pass their case interviews. For example, Case Interview Secrets teaches one central framework: customer, competition, company, and product. It then tells you to use this framework for every single case situation or scenario. While this works for some cases, this definitely will not work for most cases. As another example, Case in Point teaches you to memorize 12 different frameworks to apply to 12 different case interview situations. This might sound great on paper, but the reality is that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different case interview situations. Not only are these 12 frameworks overly complex, but there will always be nuances and context in a case that make these 12 frameworks not entirely relevant or appropriate. The candidates that land multiple consulting job offers develop their own strategy through trial and error. They don't just rely on reading these 2 popular case prep books and using off-the-shelf strategies that they teach. If you don't want to spend the many hours doing practice cases and through trial and error, developing your own case interview strategies, we'll show you the exact case interview resources we recommend that you use to learn the right case interview strategies the first time later on in this video. Before we move on to the second critical mistake that candidates make when preparing for case interviews, please take a second to give this video a like. Make sure to also subscribe so that you don't miss any of our new consulting case interview content. Mistake number 2. The second mistake is practicing with poor practice cases that are not representative of an actual case interview. These can be cases that are too short and easy, too long and complicated, or cases that don't test you on the right skills and qualities that consulting interviewers are looking for. Imagine if you spent hundreds of hours practicing cases that weren't actually reflective of an actual case interview. While you still may learn some things, your practice will not be as efficient or effective as someone that is practicing with case interviews that were used in actual consulting interviews at firms such as McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Deloitte, Accenture, and more. So, make sure that the practice cases you are using are representative of a realistic case interview. The vast majority of candidates end up using low-quality cases that they find online, unrealistic cases found in the back of popular case interview prep books, or made-up cases from friends that have never recruited for or done consulting. Instead, you ideally want to practice with cases that were actually used in previous consulting interviews. You'll learn way more doing 10 cases that are based on actual consulting interviews than 100 random cases you find online of questionable quality. We'll show you where you can find high-quality practice cases later on in this video. Mistake number 3. The third mistake is getting poor feedback from bad case partners. Imagine two candidates that are complete beginners that are practicing cases with one another. How effective do you think this will be? This situation is like the blind leading the blind. How can a case interview beginner provide high-quality feedback to another person when they themselves don't know exactly what case interviews are? How can a case interview beginner simulate a real case interview experience for their partner when they themselves don't know how a case interview should go? If possible, you should try to practice case interviews with someone that is better at case interviews than you. This way, you'll be able to learn from that person. You can see how they tackle case interviews and pick up on some of their strategies and best practices. Ideally, you will want to eventually do a few practice cases with current or former consultants. Doing a mock case with a former or current consultant is highly advantageous because they know exactly how to run cases and give feedback. You'll receive incredibly helpful feedback that your previous case partners likely missed. Even better, try to do a few practice cases with current or former consultants from McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. These three consulting firms are typically the hardest firms to get into, and they have the highest bar for case interview performance. Next steps. Now that you know these three huge case interview prep mistakes, you can make sure that you prepare for case interviews the right way. To avoid mistake number 1 of learning the wrong case interview strategies, check out our case interview prep resources we've linked in the description below. These resources will teach you the right case interview strategies the first time around. We teach the most robust, effective case interview strategies in the least time-consuming way to save you hundreds of hours of prep time and help you land multiple consulting job offers. To avoid mistake number 2 of practicing with poor cases, check out the resources we've linked in the description below. We've compiled practice cases provided by all of the major consulting firms, as well as MBA case books that have cases that were previously asked in actual consulting interviews. To avoid mistake number 3 of getting poor feedback from bad case partners, leverage your friends, classmates, colleagues, and broader network to find an experienced case partner. With the right preparation, you'll not only increase your chances of landing a consulting offer, but also save yourself hundreds of hours of wasted prep time in the process.